Alright, we are back after a very long patch into Star Trek Online. And as I understand it, there is a new event going on, returning to Best Serve Cold. So we will be returning to Ruapenthe, and upon completing 14 days of this event, we are getting a Nanopulse Targ combat pet. So once we finish this event, I'll make sure to make a video on that. But for now, let's hop into this TFO. The game just came back online, so I'm assuming we won't have to wait too long for this TFO. Let's get some of these skill boosts going. For those of you that don't know, these things buff your engineering, science, and tactical skills respectively, and they can be purchased at a fleet starbase. We've also got a few endeavors here. Transdimensional Tactics has been the TFO for the past 2 days. I'll probably do that. We have phaser damage in space, which should be taken care of with the sensor-linked phaser build on the Inquiry. So let's hop into it and see how it goes. Hopefully we don't have too much trouble and we don't crash out of the game here. The patch took about 2 hours longer than I think they originally planned it to. So
his forces have disabled the satellite control stations in all. Once we've dealt
who knows, there could have been some bigger issues they had to work out. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. One of the bigger additions is the fact that traits are now bound to your loadout, and they have split the active reputation between space and ground, which is very nice. I'm personally a huge fan of this decision, and it's small quality of life updates like that that keep this game so popular. Hopefully, I do hope they worked on the sort of problem with this TFO. I remember it taking just ridiculous amounts of time to actually get through for one reason or another. So, who knows, maybe that's something they addressed. It's a minor rework. It's just that I remember in the original event this TFO took 10 to 15-ish minutes to complete sometimes, and a lot of people were not too fond of that. Alright. So.
Watch out! The defense satellites are targeting us!
Yeah, I forgot the defense satellites shoot back at you, but that's not a huge issue for me.
Target's shields have failed.
And my phaser damage endeavor is complete, no surprise there.
Enemy is cutting. Consider every control station Alpha is under our control now. Control station Beta is ours.
Those Volkai infiltrators are uploading a virus.
Control station Gamma has been restored.
Nice,
Destroy
so
the infiltrators.
looks like we got all the satellites under our control now.
Target's shields have failed.
For those of you that don't remember, this is just the first of 3 phases of this TFO. And this is by far the easiest. It basically just requires you to sit around here and take out any infiltrators that come near the stations.
Warning, ship is under attack.
Like that one. Take a quick look at stats so I can see how my crits are looking in combat. Got a crit chance of 49.6, crit severity around 270. It's pretty good. I'm definitely happy with those numbers. I'm running some of the sensor-linked disruptors from the Discovery weapons packs and the phaser wide-angle beam bank in front, as well as the dark matter quantum torpedo. And I am using the 3-piece set at the moment, because I also have Lorca's console on here, and it's honestly one of my favorite space weapon sets in this game. I've used a few of them, but the Disco set is definitely one of my favorites.
Shields have failed.
But your torpedo hits hard, dark matter disillusion can crit, and the wide angle is usually one of the heaviest hitting weapons I have in my arsenal. So if I'm going phaser build, I'm usually going
Warning.
phaser wide
Ship
angle
is under attack.
and sensor linked. Although pulse phasers are also very good. They're high on my list, and so are the advanced phasers. I've come to enjoy just about all of them.
Target's shields have failed. Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
Ooh, that's a nice 101k hit, 89k hit, 85k hit. I definitely have a lot of fun in this ship.
Warning. Ship
This
is
was one
under
of my
attack.
favorite and most well-tested builds. Like, we got about 5 seconds left on this phase, and we'll be able to move on here.
Target's shields have failed.
And next is the prison break. So I'm gonna go ahead and fly down here, try to catch some of these ships trying to escape.
The enemy is on the move.
The Mokai will protect you.
So in this phase, prisoner transports have been stolen on the surface, and they are going to try and escape. And what you have to do is disable those ships with your weapons, and then restore control to the prisoner ships and send them back towards, I guess, the main base, which is over on the far edge of the map where you spawn in. One thing that's tough to do, and it's something I learned when I was using my science ship on this map the first time around, is if you're using gravity well, you can
Ship is under
kill the
attack.
prisoner transports, and then you won't get credit for them. I found this is a lot easier and just use phaser weapons. It's disabled, and then you work from there.
Mokai infiltrators are headed toward Alpha. Destroy them.
So you'll notice that, like, once I restore control, it'll go back up to 50% health regardless of where I put it at. But do be careful about things that do any sort of radiation damage or damage over time, because you see it's slowly sapping the health of that ship, and you can accidentally lose a transport or two
Ship is under
that
attack.
way.
Stupid, but bold.
More infiltrators. They're headed to Gamma Station.
Warning. Ship is under attack.
Two more transports just broke at
Warning. Ship
Don't
is under attack.
underestimate.
Target's shields have failed.
Infiltrators closing on Alpha and Beta stations. Destroy them.
Picking up 3 more transports
Warning.
on
Ship
Sigler.
is under attack.
Stop.
Target's shields
Now, if you'll
have
notice
failed.
the sound dropping out there, I believe that's because that's actually where the map ends, and if your camera view moves outside of the actual playable map, the sound also cuts out there.
Mokai infiltrators closing on all stations. Stop them.
It's one of those weird little things in the game I've noticed over time. That transport might die.
5. I repeat,
Warning.
5
Ship is under
transports
attack.
just broke off. You know what to do.
Target's shields have failed.
Looks like that person is using some of the advanced phasers. Oh, I just realized there are 2 Disco Connies on the team. Hey, that
All
transport
ships,
after was already
main
out of health.
transports are making a break.
Warning.
Hilarious.
Ship
Do
is
not
under
let
attack.
them get away.
Target's shields have failed.
Those tactical flyers, oh, are so much fun. Let's see if he can catch that last transport there. Looks like the
Warning.
tactical flyers got
Ship
it.
is under attack.
Nice. Looks like just about got all the transports. I'm not sure exactly how many are supposed to launch, but I believe that's supposed to be the last of them.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
Not, I'll just fly back down there. I'll clean up some of these ships. Now, if I'm not mistaken, the last phase of this is definitely one of the more interesting parts. All of the transports, you find out, are rigged to blow, and you have to take them out before they take out the satellites.
Target's shields have
But
failed.
if you destroy them and you're too close, they will do damage to you. It's usually not an ideal situation to find yourself in. I have been killed in this TFO simply from destroying a ship and being too close to it.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
Just about everything is getting melted around here. Not having too much trouble with it. And looks like there's only one more transport left to with there. Nice.
Looks like we stopped them. Destroy them.
Yep.
But stay out of their blast radius.
So all of these dilithium haulers here are all rigged to blow, and you have to stop them before they can get to the 3 bases that you've been protecting: Alpha, Beta, and Gamma. This is definitely my favorite part of the TFO. It's fun getting to fly around with explosions going off. I just have a lot of fun with it. So, because of that, you know, I think
Warning. Ship
we
is
should
under
go
attack.
HUDless for this last portion. Hopefully my abilities will be enough to keep me alive. I won't have any of my hull heals, so hopefully I don't explode. But we will see here.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed. Four shields failing.
Beta and Gamma stations have no lithium haulers in proximity.
Picking up multiple signals on long-range systems. Looks like more dilithium.
Right shield's failing.
Sounds like I'm taking some serious damage here. But right now, all I know is that my shields are down on 2 sides.
Gamma station has dilithium hollows within proximity. Alpha station has dilithium hollows within proximity.
Oh, I might have been too close to
Right
that
shield
one.
failing.
Alright, looks like we cleaned up all the ones over here.
Alpha and Gamma stations have dilithium haulers in proximity.
Target shields have failed.
All ships, withdraw!
Alright, it looks like that is the end of the TFO here. Awesome. That was the best served cold TFO. The new event, 14 days, new combat pet on the ground, which is an interesting choice considering that this is a space cube, but hey, I'm not the one who runs the game, I just play it. So let's head back to ESD, and let's try to get transdimensional tactics done while we're here. Alrighty, let's get queued up and hope that there are other people doing it too. So, for those of you that don't know, if you're ever wondering why it won't show up in T's, it's because I believe it still shows up as Nukara Prime, Transdimensional Tactics. So you'll find it under the ends instead. And to get this out of the way, I'm going to queue up for both normal and advanced difficulty, and hope we don't have to wait too long for this one. In the meantime, let's look at this new trait system. So not too much has changed. The only major thing is that instead of having just an active reputation section at the bottom, you now have active ground and active space reputation, and each one can have up to 5 slots. You are defaulted to 4, and the 5th one, it looks like, can be bought at a fleet research lab, probably for some amount of dilithium and fleet credits. After we do this TFO, we will stop by the fleet research lab to see what those prices actually are. I think in the meantime, this choice of space traits isn't too bad. And for ground, let's just go with what I have so far. Alright, perfect timing. I should probably equip an environmental suit, and all of my traits are gone. Okay, that's an interesting bug. Let's see if that applies even when I'm done with this TFO. I have no idea what that person's doing. I get the feeling they're not going to be too incredibly helpful. Someone's already taken damage in the acid pool, so we're not going for that. Now I know this Tholian project leader likes to use a knockback attack pretty often. This is usually the part where I switch to my sniper rifle to help take out some of these interspatial portals. In the first phase, I wouldn't say it's super necessary because it's still pretty easy to get around. But in the second and third phases, where you have to close the portals, it's a little bit more useful because it's a lot harder to maneuver around the map. Because this green acid that slowly kills you will slowly rise as the TFO continues. And for those of you that don't know, this is also the best TFO to run if you have to kill a Tholian captain. As I believe it's this TFO and the other Nukara Prime one that even has a Tholian captain for you to kill. Oh, yes, there it is. Using that oh so fun knockback attack. Don't need it, but here's some ambush turrets. And that was the Universal Endeavor for the rest of the day. And now we'll get to find out a little bit more about whatever happened here. Hopefully my traits magically return when I get back up to space, but if not, it looks like I will be redoing my traits today. And it looks like I will be redoing my traits today. That is an interesting bug. Definitely one of the more annoying ones. I think I'm actually going to try and use anchored now. I find that with a ship like this, I've been sitting still a lot more. And getting a plus 20% bonus damage could potentially be nice. Now, usually I would use Beam Barrage, but I find that as soon as I find it on here, there is another trait that does something similar, but has proven to be a little bit more useful, and that would be Superior Beam Training. And this comes from getting your R&D skill in beams up to level 15. Also be using Terran targeting systems. Don't think we're going to go repair crews since survivability isn't nearly as important in PvE. Obviously going to put on operative. And now, decide what to do for the rest of it. Innocuous will definitely go on. Intelligence Agent Attaché is a very nice trait. I've had a lot of fun with that one. I'll go into the breach and let's see, I have one more. And we'll go with adaptive offense. Now back to my starship traits. We had critical systems, emergency weapon cycle, preferential targeting, supercharged weapons, super weapon ingenuity, and what was my last one, I wonder? Of course, now I can't remember. Oh yes, it is the trait off of the legendary Galaxy Dreadnought, Best Hope of the Empire. This is a very fun trait, I found out. The 50,000 temporary hit points are useful for survivability, and having a 10% bonus to all damage has definitely come in handy. So now let's move down to space reputation and choose what we are going to use for that. First one, I know, is always going to be Tyler's Duality. And to complement Tyler's Duality, I tend to also go with Fortified Hull. Give me a boost to my max hull. magnified weapon, magnified firepower is always a useful one. That's 6.3 bonus weapon damage is oh so very critical. And the last two I tend to move around depending on what I want to do. Rending shots is nice, but if you already have a high enough crit chance, it's not nearly as useful. If you're going to go against an enemy that will debuff you, this comes in handy a lot in PvP. Using Landry's loyalty can actually help, because this will refresh every 7.5 seconds, and if you get a critical hit, you can cleanse one of your own debuffs, which can be very useful against someone who's, say, using science abilities against you. Precision is always a good choice to get you that extra amount of critical hit chance. And what should I choose for the last space reputation trait? There are so many very good choices I found. And this is why this tends to be one of the ones I go back and forth on a pretty regular basis. I tend to not focus super defensively if I'm going to go PvE, but there's definitely always an argument to be made that survivability can be important. And for now, I'm going to go with advanced targeting systems to give me a boost to my critical severity. Now I'm going to go back and disable all of these visuals because I think they are ugly. And now I'm going to save this loadout. Oh, I should have probably checked and made sure that Yep, the bridge officers did not seem to be affected by that bug, although this could have just been from the new system having to reset everything before you can apply all of your traits. That would be entirely possible, and I guess there are worse things. I'll save this one more time. Alright, well, that's that. Let's hop into a quick random TFO. The one thing I like about the red alerts is that it's a fun, easy mission that you can hop into very quickly, but I really wish that they were around all the time. But at the same time, I do very much enjoy getting the epic upgrades from running 5 of them. I used mine to upgrade the 0-point energy conduit, because reputation items tend to be a little bit more of a hassle to upgrade, and I replaced Approaching Agony with this console. I gave up a 15% phaser damage, that's Cat 1, but instead of a 1.5% boost to my critical chance, I was able to bump that up to 2.4%. Give me a nice little boost to Starship Drain expertise, which isn't super important. There are only a few factions that will actually use drain abilities on you, and if the Borg are going to drain your shields, there's not a lot your drain resistance is going to be able to do. And a boost to power is always appreciated, especially when running a beam overload build, because it'll only work if you can maintain your power levels enough to keep it running, which is why I tend to focus all of my power into beams, and everything that's not into beams I put into engines to try and give me just a little bit of an edge. On my carrier build, however, I tend to focus a little bit more on auxiliary power, but that is one of those up to you and based on your playstyle sort of. Oh no. And out of all of the TFOs we could have gotten, it looks like it's going to be gravity kills. So this should be fun. I talked about in a previous stream the thing that people do that tends to annoy a lot of people, and that is using gravity wells against the Zenkethi. You can make gravity wells work if you're going to face down Zenkethi. That being said, you need to know what you're doing when you use it. If you're just running gravity wells and you have a moderate EPG score, more likely what you'll do is pull a bunch of enemies together and they'll just start buffing each other and the TFO will never ever end.
Warning. Ship is under attack.
For example, the best thing to do when taking out the Zenkethi is focusing on the cruisers first. They're what buff the rest of the ships. So, you target those first, you take them out. Taking out the frigates or the battleships will be a lot easier. Just like that. So this TFO is pretty straightforward. You have to go and pick up Hawking particles, which are these little orange particles you see floating around. And you have to bring them back to the Jupiter. This TFO is honestly one of my favorites for a very strange reason. I enjoy seeing ships that they introduce into the game actually used in missions. It brings another level of realism as far as missions and the ships. They introduced tons of ships from the Discovery expansion that were found from Yard 24, but you don't see a whole lot of them actively showing up in missions. I believe there's one patrol where you see a Hernandez class or the Somerville, but that's about it as far as the Disco ships that you see. But the Jupiter is a ship they added into the game, which wasn't universally liked by people, but it's one that sort of, it's a ship that you could at least justify its purpose in Starfleet. If Starfleet were to ever use a carrier, this would be it. It's the aircraft carrier of Starfleet ships. It's not great at protecting itself, but what it can do, it does well, because it would have a very large carrying capacity, even though in game, obviously, it's the same as basically any other carrier in the game. Though I do know that I used to run this TFO a lot when I was still running in a Vengeance, and I understood a lot less about the game, especially things like power levels, and it showed very quickly. On the third base, I would constantly just get the Hawking particles and immediately get sucked into the black hole, and I would be completely incapable of escaping.
Target shields have failed.
I'd say engine power is probably more important than any damage you could do in a TFO like this, because it won't matter if you get stuck. Even now, I'm at 1/4 impulse power and I'm basically not moving because the power of me being pulled back by the hypermass is equal, basically, to 1/4 of my full impulse power. So the first phase of this TFO tends to be pretty easy, but each base gets closer and closer to the black hole, which makes it harder and harder to collect Hawking particles without falling in. When you fall in, you'll get a little message telling you to warp out, otherwise you'll die. And you got about 2 seconds from that showing up to hit the warp out button before you're just done. Now luckily, my team was able to do a very good job of clearing out some of those Zenkethi ships before we got to the second phase. So hopefully this run won't be too bad. Abilities like evasive maneuvers are definitely
Target's shield has
useful
failed.
for
Right
getting out of
shield
things
failing.
like this. I have full on just used evasive maneuvers to save me in this TFO. And depending on what ship you're flying, you could use it to get past the point of no return. If you ever want a fun little role-playing challenge from
Warning.
JJ's 2009 Star Trek, is taking your Kelvin Connie right up to the black hole and then using the auxiliary warp core ejection and seeing if you can escape. If anyone can pull that off successfully, I would absolutely love to see a video of it.
Target's shields have failed.
Let's see.
Target's shields have failed. Right shield failing. 4 shields failing. Hull integrity below 75%.
Another thing I found helps me get out of these things a little bit more are the competitive engines. Whenever I activate a firing mode, something like beam overload or cannon scatter volley or torpedo spread,
Target's shields have failed.
give me a nice little boost to my flight speed and turn rate, which can be really good for getting out of the gravity well. Especially when you accidentally fly a little bit too far and get stuck
4
like I just
shields
did.
failing. Rear shields failing.
Trying to get that Hawk particle right there, but it looks like it won't matter because looks like the team was able to finish up.
Left shields failing. Hull integrity below 75%. Target's shields have failed.
Station is falling into the black hole. Move on to the next one.
Target's
I like to
shields
try
have
and clean
failed.
up at least most of these Zinketi ships before I go on to the next one, because most of them won't despawn when you actually finish all 3 star bases, and then you just have a lot more to deal with when you're trying to leave. Boy, I just got
Hull
nailed
integrity below 75%.
by the Zinketi. Alright, let's try to get out of here.
Target's shields have failed. Hull integrity below 75%. Target's shields have failed. Hull integrity below 75%. Hull integrity below 25%. Hull integrity below 50%.
Right there, I almost just got wiped off the face of the map.
Target's shields have failed. Left shields failing.
Zinketi in large
Rear
numbers
shields
are
failing.
probably some of the most
Hull
difficult
integrity
enemies to
below
deal with.
50%. 4
And that
shields
was me
failing.
getting caught too close to the gravity well at the last minute. Luckily I was able to click it fast
Hull
enough to
integrity
warp
below
out.
75%.
And now I warp back in and I'm right back in the fight.
Warning, ship is under attack.
You'll notice progress on this
Target's shields have
phase has
failed.
been considerably
4
slower
shields
than the
failing.
last two. Because I imagine I'm not the only one who keeps overflying. I see the person in the Cardassian ship right there might be just a little bit stuck. They're definitely fighting the current. Luckily I was able to pull away pretty quickly.
Warning, ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
Let me try to clear out some of these and get these ships to make all of our lives a little bit easier too. And pick up the Hawking particle.
4 shields
Automatic.
failing. Rear shields failing. Left shields failing. Target's shields have failed.
Alright, looks like we only need 1 or 2 more Hawking particles to finish up here. Let's see if we can get this done.
Right shields failing. 4 shields failing. Hull integrity below 50%. Hull integrity
Trying to get
below
close
75%.
enough without also just getting sucked in. I'm also having to eat hot shots while I'm at it. Alright, I was able to get it. Let's ramp up my engines and get out of here. Nice.
We've collected enough Hawking particles to power
Hull integrity below 75%.
Shields down.
Target's shields have failed. Rear shields failing.
Try to clear out some of these ships shooting at the Jupiter. And we were able to keep the Jupiter alive too. It's a nice little optional objective for some extra marks.
Left shield failing. 4 shields failing. Hull integrity below 75%. Hull integrity below 50%. Right shields failing.
Alright. And now we get to take out the Zinkethi Dreadnought. Should be fun. Let's get buffed up so we're ready for it.
Warning, ship is under attack.
Engage then.
Let's get them all stuck up. There we go. Try to take out those cruisers first so they can't buff.
Four shields failing. Target's shields have failed.
And that is the TFO.
There's still much work to be done.
I'd say that run still went rather well.
The crusade will continue unless we put an end to it, quickly and decisively. Until that day, fight well. Kapla.
Well, that was a ton of fun. Alright, let's warp out and let's try to do 1 or 2 more TFOs here. Oh, I didn't even notice that one of my endeavors was to do Lucari TFOs. Well, if I'm able to do another one at some point today, that will be great. But we'll go ahead and see. But actually, before we do another TFO, let's hop over to the Fleet Research Lab so we can find out how much that last slot is going to cost for the active ground and active space reputations. Now just to check, all of my traits are still there after beaming down to the ground, so that's good. We're going to come over to this console over here. And this is the active ability reputation, and this is ground reputation. But where are the options to purchase active space? It looks like they have yet to actually add in the ability to buy a separate active ground and space unless you purchase them both at once, in which case that would be great. I guess we'll find out more about that soon enough. Let's do another TFO. Now, for those of you that don't know, there are a ton of useful things at a Fleet Research Lab. For one, there are bridge officers you can get here, there are duty officers, and I believe, yep, this is also where you come to get secondary deflectors. Secondary deflector I'm using on my ship, I purchased from here. You can see all the modifiers here. There are a ton of combinations. So if you're running a science ship, or you're running the new legendary ship, because I believe it has a secondary deflector on it. Which will be a very interesting ship if that ends up being true. I haven't purchased the pack to find out for myself, but I believe in the stream it had a secondary deflector slot, which would make it very interesting if you ever wanted to build up a much more survivable
Listen up. The war has not been
science ship. Alright, looks like we got Starbase 1 for this TFO. On our team we have an Archon class, which is the Intel Assault Cruiser, a Jemadar bug ship. This is a Galaxy Dreadnought, which could be the legendary one, and it is. And it looks like we have one of the Scimitar variants, the T6 one. Very nice.
Here they come.
Warning, ship is under attack.
This is also one of my
Target's shields have failed.
more fun TFOs because it allows me to just fly around and one-shot things.
Non-essential personnel and civilians.
Target's shields have failed.
If you notice why I always
Target's
seem to
shield
lock
has
onto things
failed.
that are in front of me, and I'll try to find a new target if I fly past something, it's because the way I built this ship up is all of my fire is basically focused forward. If something is outside of the front 90 degrees of my firing arc, most of my hardest hitting weapons won't be able to hit it. So by keeping something in front of me, I'm able to focus all 8 of my weapons on one target, which adds up to a ton of damage, especially on a single target beam overload build. Looks like we're running Class C shuttlecraft.
Target's
There's a
shields
break
have
in
failed.
incoming warp signatures. You may have a short amount of time before more arrive.
Next raid is the TFO, going to be taking on some SEC battle cruisers.
Reading some heavier ships
Warning.
incoming.
Ship
One thing
is
I know
under
would make
attack.
this TFO
Target's
much more
shields
difficult
have
is if
failed.
they use the same abilities that they use in the patrols, which is a few of the intel abilities like evade, target lock, and the viral impulse burst that will send you flying at full impulse in your forward direction. It is definitely one of the more annoying abilities. That and the transport warhead.
Target's shields have failed.
Whenever you see that little countdown and then your ship takes a bunch of damage, it is them literally transporting a torpedo somewhere onto your ship and then remotely detonating it. And it's a pretty nasty ability, especially if it's being used against you.
Target's shields have
I might
failed.
stop by and do a quick rescue and search on Elite after we finish this TFO here before we finish up.
Target's shields have failed.
Please assist. An evacuation ship is launching. Give them cover.
Target's shields have failed. Four shields failing. Target's shields have failed.
This is Andor. Our shields are taking hits, and we could use an escort.
Nice. So that's 2 of the ships we've been able to allow
An
evacuate.
evacuation ship is launching. Give them cover. The Klingons are regrouping again. Get into position.
And now to
prepare
take
for
on
the
some
next
battle
assault.
cruisers.
Warning. Ship is under attack.
Here come the Klingon battleships. Keep fighting.
Target's shields have failed.
Because of just how great the scope of this battle is, let's go HUDless for a little while.
Target's shields have failed.
Lafayette here, requesting assistance.
An evacuation ship is launching. Give them cover.
Target's shields have failed. Target's shields have failed. Target's shields have failed. Four shields failing.
We've almost got the last ship out of here.
Roosevelt is in need of aid. Can you draw off some of those enemy ships?
Now to clean up the rest of the Klingons.
Target's shields have failed. Rear shields failing.
That'll hold them off, for now.
That was a fun little
How much
run.
longer we can keep up with this kind of war. Today was a good one. At least there will be a tomorrow.
And now to finish up, we're gonna do an elite run of the Rescue and Search Patrol. It's definitely one of my favorite patrols in the game, and it's a nice metric for testing out your ship.
Good to see you, my friend. We can...
So let's get our weapons
Warning.
buffed up here,
Ship is under attack.
and let's head into combat.
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed.
That ability right there that just set my health from 100 to 75 was that transport warhead ability I told you about earlier. It is dangerously effective.
Target's shields have failed.
We did it. Sensors are clear, for the moment. I'm afraid I have some bad news, however. 2 of our ships were studying the nearby rift into the mycelial network when the Klingons attacked. While I'm still showing them on Klingon
Warning. Ship is under attack. Target's shields have failed. 4 shields failing.
Now let's free the 2 Lucari ships.
Some sort of energy surge erupted from the rift and hit us. We lost main power, sensors, everything. If you arrived a few minutes later, it would have been over for all of us. Truly, the blessings of Lucar are upon us this day. Thank you. Our...
Our systems are coming back online nicely. My thanks to you and your crew. At the risk of looking impatient, may I suggest we move to safer surroundings? There's no telling when this rift will surge once more. Then,
Under the circumstance,
if you feel that...
that It's one less rift to worry about. Let's mark it.
Bad news, I'm afraid. Klingons are
Now
approaching
time
our
to take on
position.
some Klingon attack squads.
Ship is under attack. 4 shields failing. Target's shields have failed. Target's shields have failed. Four shields failing.
Oh man,
Right
a
shield
lot of
failing.
systems got disabled just then.
Left shield failing.
It's what I very much dislike about ships that use intelligence
Hull
seeding
integrity below
against
50%.
me.
Rear shields failing.
I can't actually sit still and expect to stay alive here.
4 shields failing. Hull integrity below 25%. Target's shields have failed.
Doesn't help that now they also follow me if I
Hull
run
integrity
away.
below 75%.
I'm just trying to buy time for all my hull heals to come off of
Hull
cooldown.
integrity below 50%.
Aw man, I got hit with viral impulse burst. If I'm already going at full impulse when it happens, it'll take ages to get back.
Target's shields have failed. Four shields failing. Rear shields failing. Left shields failing. Hull integrity below 50%. Right shields failing. Hull integrity below 25%.
Ooh, and right before I could call in the Klingon reinforcements too. Just couldn't get out of range fast enough there. Let's try that again.
Warning, ship is under attack.
Downside of having to respawn is I have to take the time to get all of my buffs back.
Let's deal with distractions, shall we?
Target's shields have failed.
But everything is slowly coming back now.
Four shields failing. Rear
Oh boy,
shields failing.
got hit with viral impulse burst again.
Warning, ship is under attack. Four shields failing.
Alright, looks like one more ship left to deal with.
Please state the nature of the emergency.
And that's that.
I think that was the last of them. It appears Ja'ula and her forces have been stopped once again. Indeed.
Let's pick up some of the loot here. Now let's head back to ESD. Alright, we're going to be taking a quick break from the stream here, but I hope to be on a little bit later tonight, and I will see all of you guys then. So, have fun, stay safe, and happy playing.